Nobody panic. Everything's fine. And this episode today, no, does not have intro music. It's not going to have an outro and the usual accoutrement, if you will, because I'm calling this episode, which is episode 56 of my show, Here I Go Again. And this is more of a personal take on life update, things that have been happening. Changes are upon us again, and I want to explain to you why and what's been happening pretty much since the summer of 2024, maybe even earlier than that, and kind of what I'm feeling and noticing about the show and what's going on. Back when, the start of the year, I ended up partnering with a great nonprofit organization, and I still do coaching and facilitating of workshops for them. And at the same time, I was trying to find a way to bring my social media presence back to the forefront of my life, because as I've highlighted in a previous episode where I talk about how my mom died and how do I lead now, something that I was going through was I need to merge this leadership front of this company that I'm partnered with, and also at the same time bring back my content, bring back my show, bring back videos, bring back all the things. So I'll create a leadership podcast. And when I did that in the very beginning, I had so much to say and share, and I still do. It's not that I don't. But something I'm noticing as I've now evolved my podcast, I think 3 or 4 times now since I started it in 2022, albeit it's been inconsistent really until lately. I love freedom. And I love freedom in so many senses of that word. And because I enjoy my freedom of expression, and also what that includes is being able to talk about anything and everything that I'm passionate about, I don't think at this point in time it's best for me to narrow down my focus to just leadership and topics around leadership. Because for those of you who've been following my social media content since I really got going in 2014, 2015, I have covered the gamut. I started by creating content because I was being certified and am now certified as a transformational trainer of distinctions that teach people how to be mindful of their choices, how to own, be accountable for, have responsibility for, take action on the vision they have for their life. That was the scope of my life. When I left public education and I went into personal development as an industry, that I just described was my primary focus for a number of years. And because I was leading workshops for so long with another company in Florida at the time, what happened was I was meeting people constantly, and I was exposed to different stories of different humans I was meeting, and I was inspired, and I would share those, and I would share my reflections on what I witnessed in people and how I saw people really notice what they were exceptional at and how they learned to make that strength that they have something that was more prominent in their life. So my ability to reflect, and a lot of times reflect very deeply on different topics, that is a gift I have had my entire life. And when I started making content, when I just described it, that's what I would do. I would observe the world around me, and I would get on Facebook Live and I would talk about it. And then eventually it became shorts and reels and this podcast. And I liked the flexibility of being able to bounce around based on what inspired me in the moment. And it's with that content that I grew my audience and my following to what it is now. Well, I also at the same time was very passionate about relationships because, like I said, I'm I'm a witnesser, a witness of life. And I notice how people interact with one another. And again, I reflect on things. I think about things. I analyze things. I question things, not from a cynical perspective, but because I'm curious. And that was when I stepped into relationship coaching. And so much of my content then became about relationships of all kinds, but primarily around romantic relationships and situations that would come up there. And in that season of my life, I was single for a very long time, and I was learning constantly about relationships, not just because I was looking at the world around me and what I would see with people I was teaching or coaching, but also I was learning so much about communication, emotional well-being, emotional intelligence at the same time, because that was my way of ensuring that when I did have a relationship in the future and eventually get married, I would know what the heck I was doing, at least more so than I did back then. So I was in it for myself, really. Like, I was learning about relationships and then passing on my dissection, my interpretation of everything that was there. Similar to what I was doing when I was working in transformational training centers and those coaching clients and those students. I'm observing, I'm reflecting, I'm learning, I'm taking the deep dive. At times I would get really obsessed with certain topics, and then I would go share it. Because when I really enjoy something or I'm super interested in something, I will not only do all the things I just said, but I want to go tell people about it. I want other people to benefit from any knowledge that I've soaked up that can be beneficial to them. And that is where my gift as a teacher comes into play as well. So I've got life experience at this point from, 2006 to 2013, actually longer than that or so, in public education, being a teacher, an explainer of difficult things, then segue into personal development. And I'm still observing humans, how they operate, how they relate to one another, why they don't relate to one another, what brings them together, what pulls them apart. Observe, explain, teach. And through those teachings and examples and storytelling and all those things, it helped my audience. It helped my clients. It helped my students. And I loved that arena. And then fast forward to when somewhere in, 2021 or so, I don't even know at what point my focus on, quote, relationship coaching ended. I don't know that it ever really did, but I didn't give myself the title around 2021 or so. I was fading out of that for a moment. I was still a little bit in it, but that was at the end of that year is when I met my now husband, and my life became not so much a time to learn all the things about relationships, but put it into practice and see, did I learn it? Am I practicing it? What am I figuring out now? What are the challenges now that I'm, I learned the walk, but now can I actually walk the walk? And 2022 gave me that opportunity, and I wasn't coaching on it as much because I was very much entering into this season of soon to be a family woman. And I've highlighted these things on previous episodes, but somewhere in 2022, I had a God nudge, a really loud God nudge, where I was told, I feel the Holy Spirit just said to me, teenage girls and their mothers, teenage girls and your mothers, like that audience needs you. So that's when I went back to the podcast for a moment. And instead of having relationship relatable content, I said, you know what? I'm going to make content that's going to help parents. And remember, this is still before I was engaged, before I was married, before I became full-time mom, right? So I'm learning by doing in my personal life, but also I was able to share my personal experiences of what I'd witnessed as a school teacher, as a coach, while also coaching other parents through learning emotional intelligence. So I hope you're seeing, I'm laying this all out for you because I'm trying to show you that there's been this rolling effect of all the things coming together, moving forward, but a snowball is happening here too, where each topic is becoming a part of the next. Education and teaching became a part of transformation, and the mentorship, being a teacher, became a part of coaching people in those workshops that I led. And then that transformed into noticing how people interact. And then that transformed into being a relationship coach. And then that transformed into relationship coaching between parents and teenagers, which was like a merger of my past world. And that's where this leadership organization that I partnered with, someone recommended me to them because they felt my values and that organization's values align. And they still very much do to this day. And what happens is in that moment, I took on a role with them. So now 2023 goes by, started 2024. This is through my mom's cancer diagnosis. So I'm not really focused on my career at this time. I'm focused on surviving and other really big life positive changes in a lot of cases and some really tough stuff. And when I partnered with this organization, I thought, wow, this is really cool because leadership absolutely embodies all the things I just said, all of it. I teach it, I observe it, I reflect on it, I live it, I share it, I love the stories, I get obsessed with certain topics, and I want to put that out there. And so what I did was when I took on a role with that organization, one in addition to being one of their instructors, I decided I'm going to rename my podcast and I'm going to call it the Holly Hibbard Leadership Podcast. And I'm going to start creating content consistently on social media again. And I'm going to have it be about all things leadership. Well, the problem, everybody, is instead of it being my content coming from an inspired place and what am I noticing? What am I reflecting on? What am I witnessing in the world that day? What am I interested in right now? What happened is I put the word leadership as a title, and instead of it helping me to narrow down my topics, I felt too limited. I've been feeling too limited. And there is a part of me that's been reflecting for the last few weeks, especially if a leadership podcast is the best way to utilize my voice. Do I need to be that specific? Does it even need to have a title like that? Because I also noticed that seasons where I made relationship content, it was pretty specific to single people at times or people in relationships and how to navigate some sticky moments. And those episodes did really well. And then when I did episodes for parents raising teenagers, my numbers on my podcast were very well received. And I noticed, wow, there's a lot of people that still want that. And every now and then, especially now as I'm raising an 11-year-old with my husband, there are moments where I think I learned something or I think something about raising a tween, and man, I want to share those. And then I second guess it and go, yeah, but that's not leadership. That's not, that doesn't work with the audience that you're working toward. Here I am talking about coaching in businesses or helping companies have better morale. And I still do those things and want to do those things. But what I'm struggling with is how do I make my messaging concise, but not so narrow that I disallow myself from sharing what I'm inspired by that day? What if I do want to have a few episodes on parenting? What if I do want to have a few episodes for people who are sitting in the mud of being single for the 3rd, 4th, 5th year in a row? What if I do want to have a couple episodes on how to get remotivated after a tough life transition? There's so many things that inspire me that I love to learn about. I am a voracious learner. You can ask my husband, you can ask my daughter. If I am doing chores or cooking or no one is talking to me, I promise you 9 times out of 10, there are earbuds in my ear and I am listening to something. And it's typically something that is semi-educational, maybe a little bit entertaining as well. But I love learning. And being an adult who also has ADHD, part of that hyperactivity, that hyperfixation that my brain is so good at, it means that I learn things fairly quickly. And I also have an ability to then teach them to others in a creative way, to break things down where it makes sense, to take something that might be meant for one audience, like just parents or just single people or just business owners, and take that info and make it palpable to anyone who chooses to listen to my content. And I want that freedom, again, to be able to bounce around with topics I cover. And I felt inspired to write down a sentence about what I do. And the sentence that I wrote down was, I teach women how to live and lead with courage, power, and grace. And I don't know if that's going to be exactly what I lean into, but today it does feel like that's what I'm leaning into. And I'll tell you, even using those words, I do teach people, but I'm saying women because the fact is that statistically speaking, my audience, bar none, on all social media platforms is typically 85% or higher composed of women. And I am a woman, so it's easier for me to try to put myself in those shoes. It doesn't mean that I don't believe that what I have to say can't benefit men, but I am saying that I'm acknowledging what is. And what is that a decade in this industry, my audience is mostly women. And I want to be able to cultivate community amongst women. It's something I've done numerous times, actually. First with a Facebook group that I grew nationally to 6,000 members a number of years ago. That was very popular before I closed it down because it didn't resonate with who I was anymore and what I was doing. And then again, locally, I created a friendship group when I moved to Michigan in 2020. I am good at bringing people together. I love bringing people together. And I think it's time for me to, yes, redo a little bit of the podcast to simplify things so that I feel free to express what I'm inspired by in that moment. And then from there, trust that my audience can read the title of the episode, read the show notes or browse the show notes and go, okay, this is one that I really want to hear. This is one that I think benefits me. So will I have a subset of topics in general that I like to cover? Yeah, actually, I just typed up something the other day that lists what a lot of those things are. I named some of them already. Anything in regards to relationships, emotional intelligence, leadership, confidence, boosting morale in your household or in your business, getting clarity on what the heck you want, especially after you've been through a massive life transition for the positive or something more difficult, like people who are getting married for the first time in their life, or even people who are getting married for the second time in their life, and they don't know how to blend their new life with their old life. People who've lost parents, people who filed for bankruptcy and lost everything, people who suddenly want a career change because they know that they're meant for more than what they're doing and they just don't know where to start. People who find that they don't talk enough about what they do want. They talk more about what they don't want. And they know they want to think about their powers and their strengths and have it happen. Those are all things that I have experienced. Those are all things I've been through firsthand. Why am I crying? They're all things I've been through. And to limit me, for me to limit myself to one box, one topic of who I can help would be silly, because God created me a teacher. That is what I am. I'm a teacher. I am an encourager, and I love to see people win. I love to watch people live their life, lead their life, build resilience because they had a moment of courage. They had a moment where they saw their strength or their power of what they're capable of. And they had a moment of grace where they could love themselves through it, even when it was really hard. And that's what I want this show to be about. So I'm going to reformat here. I'm committed to putting out 2 episodes a week. It was a holiday week, the week I'm recording this. So this week it'll likely be a Wednesday and a Friday. My aim is to be Tuesdays, Thursdays on non-holiday weeks. And that's my aim. Those things still get to be worked out also. But I really hope and ask that you listen to the Holly Hibbard show. I think that's going to be my cousin Jody, when I was on Facebook Live every day for years, she would say, "It's the Holly show, the Holly show." So I think it'll be the Holly Hibbard show. And because who knows where this can evolve? Why call it podcast? I mean, it is a show, but I'm even thinking about things like that, everyone. I'm very conscious of the words that I use to describe what I'm creating and what I want. So in addition to being a content creator and having freedom in what I put out there, I do want to support people, and likely it'll mostly be women because most of my audience typically is women, but men, you're not excluded. I'm just saying, you make up 15% of my audience. But I do plan on coaching people private, one-on-one, which, by the way, for the month of September 2024, if you're interested in a preview of coaching with me, go to my Stan store. I will put the link in the show notes, but it's Stan, STAN.store/the Holly Hibbard. And I have audio and video coaching available where you can get a sample of what it would be like to work with me. And for the month of September, if you enter code SEPT50, SEPT50, it'll take 50% off. And it's super ridiculously affordable. And I'm doing that on purpose because if you're listening to this, I want to support you in any way, shape, or form. And I also this month am taking on new coaching clients as well who are ready to spend 90 days creating a giant leap in their life in any of the areas that I have listed out. So if you are interested in any of those, you can send me an email at holly@hollyhibbard.com. Or like I said, go to my Stan store and I'll have a form there eventually. So this has been a little bit of a ramble. Here I go again. I'm reformatting again. But I'm not niching down further. I'm instead zooming back out and really looking at what are the gifts that God gave me? How can I utilize those and help people who want to be supported in some way, uplifted, encouraged, empowered? I'm here for it. I hope you're here for it. I hope you'll stick around for the Holly Hibbard show. And that's all I have for now. I love you. I mean it. And I will talk to you soon.